Okay, so you're sitting down, close your eyes. And just like the guided meditation we did before, first of all, relax your body as much as you can. I'm going to do this quickly this time. How do your legs feel? And please be prepared to move your legs, like I just did, and now to find out if my legs feel more comfortable, and they do. I move them a little bit again. At the very least, if you have a member of your family and they're having a difficult time, just emailing them or calling them or dropping by and saying, "How are you?" That means a lot to them. And it's like my body is the same. When I just ask my feet and my ankles and my legs, "How are you? Is there anything I can do to be of help to you?" And I'm willing to adjust or to scratch or whatever needs to be done, then my legs feel more peaceful. When you are a good friend to your body becomes healthy. Then I go to my butt to make sure that's well adjusted on my seat. It feels great. I've got one of the most comfortable seats in the whole house here. And you're in an ordinary chair, but an armchair. It's pretty good. And this time, my back feels like it likes to be leaning against the backrest. Feels more comfy. And I move my attention up my body. It feels pretty okay. But I don't move so fast because there may be something I'm just not looking at. Just check my digestive system, my lungs, my heart, and the organs in my back. And when you do this regularly, you get to know your body. You get to know how it feels. And so if there's something which just is not really as usual, you can catch it pretty quickly. And if you do find some part of your body which is sore, tense, in pain, which doesn't feel correct, please linger there. Stay there for a while. Go inside it, just like focusing in on Google Maps. Focus, 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 and then once you're in the middle of it, you can spread this beautiful sense of relaxation. When they do relax, that's when healing happens. Cancers get stopped before they even could be seen on CT scans. They go up to my shoulders. I learn how to loosen them so they're not feeling like they're being pulled apart. Because once things become loose, the tension in them is relieved. They also become resilient. When a guitar string is pulled tight, something lands on it and it makes a big noise, bing! When it's loosened off, something hits the guitar string, there's no sound at all. When you're relaxed, resilience happens. And then go down my arms to my hands. And then once my hands are comfortable, however that comfort is, I do not follow books. I just let my hands decide where they should be. And I go back up to my neck, make sure that again the head is well balanced on top of the neck. Go to my face, relaxing the muscles there. I enjoy relaxing the muscles on my face because it means that you can loosen the tight emotional results of your thinking, the bad emotions. And you have a face which is kind, which appreciates the beauty in things, which is not looking like it wants to complain about something. And that face becomes really at ease. And then I look at my whole body, all joined together. And there comes a time when my body gets so relaxed, there's a special, delightful feeling which comes from such relaxation. The pleasure of bodily ease, like when you're snuggled up in your bed at night, and it's comfortable, it's your pillow, you snuggle up there, it's safe. One of the most comfortable positions you can be in. That's like the feeling I have now, even though it's sitting on an armchair. It feels really comfortable. And I'm not afraid of noticing the delight of relaxation. And then I go into my mind. Peace. How peaceful am I? And what causes more peace, deeper peace? Here's one way. You say the word peace. 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 Every time you repeat it, you let that word take you deeper into the meaning of peace. What does peace mean? What is it pointing to? Peace. 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 And then it's like you have peace. You can see it, it's like you can touch it. You may not be able to describe its qualities or its name in words, because you're experiencing peace in silence. Once you have enough peace and silence, and you're in the present moment just now, you have what I describe as adequate mindfulness. Enough mindfulness, if you wish to, you can watch something like the breath. And it's not sort of an object which is hard to see now. We have to arouse mindfulness first, and then do something like watching the breath. As I'm watching my breath, you can feel it come in and go out. You're not concerned. I'm not concerned whether it's a long breath or a short breath. As long as I know the breath, that's enough. But it does help if there's a sense of joy and delight. The mindfulness is strong enough that even if it's an old clump of bamboo, it looks beautiful. And when your mindfulness is strong enough, just one in-breath looks totally delightful. The out-breath, which is usually more subtle, again becomes very beautiful to observe as well. And once you start experiencing the joyful breathings, it's easier to continue on. I'm now going to be quiet for about 5 minutes so you can enjoy the meditation too. Right now, are you happy to be here? It may not be the deepest meditation experience, but are you content to be in this moment for another minute? How peaceful do you feel? And now is the most important time. What are you aware of right now? What are you aware of? This is the most important meditation object in the whole world for you, because it's in front of you now. And please be kind to it. Whatever's happening right now, there's always something come to teach you. A good friend who will stay with you if you show her kindness. It may be unexpected what you're experiencing right now in this moment. But that's wonderful. Care for it, respect this moment. It will stay. Energies will increase. And it will start to look more beautiful. And just watching the breath come in and watching the breath go out. There's no need to have a commentary about what the breath is doing. Learn to be able to observe in silence. That's the silence in the mind. And see if when you relax, see if the awareness and the happiness starts to arise. Now it's very close to the end of this meditation. A nice peaceful way of spending half an hour. In a few moments I'm going to ask you to open your eyes. Please open your eyes, but continue meditating with your eyes open. Don't move any other part of your body for another minute or two. And when you are ready, you can move again. That's a kind of soft way of coming out of a meditation. To open your eyes first and then move a minute or two afterwards. Okay. It is now 5:15, so there's an opportunity for some of the questions, if people have them. And again, you can use the modern devices to email a question or put it on whatever platform is necessary. It's much easier than putting your hand up. You got some questions there?
A lot.
Okay, go on.
Thank you, Ajahn. The first question is, when you mentioned the story about treating the other part of the person without schizophrenia, does it apply to people with depression? How do you care for people with depression?
One of them is never make them feel worse and never feel they're a terrible person. You're hopeless, you're not contributing. Because imagine what that would do to a person and make them even feel less worthy. Sometimes people feel they're discriminated against. There's somehow something wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with being depressed at times. Sometimes life is very depressing. For those of you who listen to some of those talks, which I gave over in Kuala Lumpur. In one of the question times there, I mentioned a time when I got enlightened. It lasted about, how many? About sort of 10 or 12 hours, but then I found out I wasn't. And if you think you're enlightened and you find out you're not, that is really depressing. There's a lovely story. It's in some of the books as well, I think. But everyone will have depression from time to time, so understand it. Don't fight it. Take a rest. It's a low mental energy state. So a lovely way of overcoming depression. If it's very severe depression, you have to see a specialist because it can be quite dangerous. You might feel like harming yourself. But if it's ordinary depression, which comes every now and again, honestly, one of the great ways of overcoming that is to do voluntary service. Go to like an old people's home. Go to like a place where there may be people in hospitals that don't get visitors. Just do some mopping of the floors. Go to the Buddhist fellowship. Because it's amazing, when you do service for others, it's amazing how that overcomes depression. You're helping others. You feel your life has more meaning. And also you meet some other wonderful people. So, that's, yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. Hi, Ajahn. Why does my upper body sway left and right during meditation? What should I do when this happens? Thank you.
Very easy answer. Wear a straitjacket. If you don't like wearing a straitjacket, at least wear a motorbike helmet, so if you fall off the chair, you won't injure yourself. No, a lot of times, if that happens, let it happen. Sometimes what happens is that because you worry about it, it's like you make it worse, you feed it. Just let it happen. After a while, it'll just disappear by itself. Secondly, there's sometimes you think it's happening, but it's not. Now, I remember just years and years and years ago, there was one woman, she was meditating. She said, I was swaying. And I said, no, you weren't. She said, yes, I was. And so the next meditation, I got a couple of people to keep their eyes open when they were meditating to watch her. She said again, it happened again. But this time I had witnesses as well. I said, you weren't swaying. You were perfectly still. Sometimes when we meditate, our perception can play games with us, and we think we are swaying, but you're not. And anyway, if you are swaying, that's not breaking any precept. Somehow or other, that's what your body needs to do. Let your body do it, and after a while, it'll vanish by itself. Don't give it importance.
Thank you, Ajahn. We now have at least 20 questions. Thank you, Ajahn Brahm. I would like to ask, how should we deal with intrusive thoughts that you know are bad and sometimes even malicious, but you can't help it?
Then just let them come.
Oh.
If you can't help it, let them come. If you can help it, then you've got some control over them, that you can actually count them as yours. If you can't help it or stop them, they're not yours. If it's your house, you can stop people coming in. But if it's not your house, you can't. So then look at these bad thoughts, not mine, nothing to do with me. And when you don't add the my onto the thoughts, they're much easier to let go of. Have you ever watched a movie which is a bad movie? Which goes around blowing people up and killing monks who don't answer all the questions after a meditation session? It's not your movie, so you don't have to worry about it.
Thank you, Ajahn. Is there a best time during the day to meditate?
Yes. The best time is now. The worst time is later.
Thank you. Dear Ajahn Brahm, can an exercise routine like a regular run count as meditation?
No.
Next. Dear Ajahn Brahm, how do you tell the difference between mind chatter and true wisdom when you are meditating?
Mind chatter is not wisdom. True wisdom comes from silence. That's a beautiful part of it. When the mind is really peaceful and you're silent, and sometimes for long periods of time, then you experience some challenging wisdom, wisdom which you've never seen before. All idle chatter is just going over old ground, old theories. Real wisdom comes from silence.
Thank you. Can meditation help with my long-term sinus for over 2 decades? What's the recommended duration and style to see any improvement?
The recommended time is forever. And the improvement, even a small amount of meditation can help, but don't expect anything. If you meditate expecting something to happen, that tension, expectation will stop the process happening. Because you have this beautiful sense of peace, relaxation, allowing these things to be, you're happy to be here. You're not trying to get somewhere else, which means that you can be peaceful. And when you're peaceful, that's when the sinus or anything which is being a difficulty for you disappears.
Thank you, Ajahn. Finding happiness in a situation is good, but what about situations that need to be changed? For instance, in a toxic relationship, instead of staying and finding happiness, should I not leave instead?
If you can see the beauty in something which people call a toxic relationship, what does that mean, a toxic relationship? I know that some medications, some chemicals are toxic, but relationship, it really depends. There's 2 people there, and in each person, they've unfortunately been unable to see the beauty inside each other. Yeah, there is, like in a schizophrenic, they can see the schizophrenic characteristics, or can see the beautiful characteristics. So it's a weird thing, but if you can see the beautiful characteristics in the person you call toxic, or the relationship toxic, you can change. How many people here would love to be appreciated and the beautiful qualities seen in them? Maybe because I'm weird, but I can see the beautiful qualities in these people in prisons. And it's a strange thing, when I can see them, they become some of my best friends. At last they say somebody appreciates us. This is pretty easy to do. You're good people. You've made mistakes. You're not a bad person. And everybody I've ever met in prison always feels ashamed of what they've done. And they would love to have another chance. And if a monk or a nun gives them another chance, they just take it with just so much gratitude. This one of the most beautiful rewards I ever got was a simple telephone call from a prison officer in Perth. He said, "I'm not a Buddhist, but we want you to come back to our prison to do some more teaching." And I responded, I said, "I can't these days. I'm now abbot of a monastery and spiritual advisor or director, whatever I am, of the Buddhist fellowship. I've got so many duties to do. I'll send another monk." And he said, "No, I want you." And of course the next word was, "Why me?" And then he gave me this comment which I will always treasure, which I can never forget. He said, "Look, I've been in the prison service in Australia all my life. That's my career. I'm going to retire next week, and I want to do something before I retire, because I've noticed that all the prisoners who came to your class, and I've been teaching there for years, when they are released, they never come back to jail. And he said, that's really weird, that stands out. And that just really touched me. Well, I'll try and do the best I can. But I kind of thought afterwards, why do all the people I teach in jail never re-offend again afterwards? And that's one of the reasons why. It's because you never see toxicity there. If you want to see toxicity, you can see it, you make it there, and it's very hard to deal with then. And the person in the relationship, the other person, can you see something beautiful, lovable, admirable in them? If you can, then you see the way out of that toxicity. If that is beyond you, fair enough, then you may have to leave and change. But see if you can give it a try. At one time in your life, when you decided to spend time with that person in a relationship, you saw something beautiful. Has it disappeared? Or have other forms of negativity taken over? One thing I will tell you is I was just in Kuala Lumpur, and that's one place, actually it was in Malacca, when I was teaching a retreat there. I was invited to perform a celebrity wedding. It got in one of these glossy magazines. The only time I've had my picture in a glossy magazine, because this lady had her own TV show, 𝐁𝐫𝐚𝐡𝐦'𝐬, I think her name was. And she was getting married in Malacca, and even though she lived in KL, and she said that she went there to do the arrangements, and she saw I just happened to be teaching a meditation retreat there at that time. Ajahn Brahm, can you please come? Said, yeah, sure. I'm a pretty easygoing monk. But then, at her wedding, the one thing which I said which meant the most to her was I asked her and her husband, please, every year on the anniversary of this blessing, I want just the two of you privately to do a forgiveness ceremony together. Have some nice dinner somewhere, or a simple meal or whatever, and then just have some simple presents, nothing expensive, not trying to outdo each other, but just even like a flower or something, and just present it to your partner. Doesn't matter who first, who second, and say, darling, husband, wife, if there's anything which I have done in the past 12 months, intentional or by accident, which has hurt you or offended you, by body, by speech, by mind, or anything I should have done which I forgot, please forgive me. Then you hand over the flower or little gift. And whoever does it first has to receive the forgiveness of the other person next. They say back to you, darling, my partner in life, if there's anything which I have done by body, speech or mind, intentional or just by accident, or things I didn't do which I should have done, please forgive me back. I'm a human being, I make mistakes, but I really seek your forgiveness so I can try and do better next time. And if any time you ask forgiveness, it has to be given. And she wrote in an article years later that that was the one thing above all which kept her marriage together. The two of them were committed enough to admit they weren't perfect. They made mistakes, but they really wanted help from each other so those mistakes don't happen again. And that was quite beautiful, how to stop toxic relationships from developing. From a time when they started off, they were beautiful and peaceful and really fulfilling. Okay.
Thank you. Dear Ajahn Brahm, I struggle with perfectionism and procrastination, causing a lot of suffering in terms of anxiety and depression, and to the people around me too. Please, could you share how I could let go of these difficulties? Thank you very much.
Procrastination is the easiest thing to let go of. But don't let go of it today. Put it off until next year. But with the perfectionism which you mentioned together, that tells what the real story is. That sometimes we don't want to even write our article or send in the email because we don't think it's good enough. And because of that, we don't really send it in at all. We waste so much time because we want to be perfect. We want everything we do to be perfect. And eventually we find it's not. I could never be a teacher if I wanted every talk to be perfect, every joke to be just so uproariously funny, people fall off their chairs when I tell them. Don't try and be perfect, because that just doesn't exist. And the story which tells that better than any other was again when I was invited to give some, not a class, but a lecture at a mental health conference. They told me, I don't know what I do, I come somewhere and they say, this is what you're supposed to do, so I do it. And so it was to the clients of the mental health service, not to the psychologists and psychiatrists. These were the clients. And please excuse me, I'm going to mention a rude word. And I'm mentioning this because when I came out from that 1-hour presentation, there was one woman there. She was an elderly English lady living in Australia. And she said, when you came in to the lecture theatre to lecture us on mental health, I told my friend, who is this, here's a word, wanker, who's coming to lecture us, meaning me. And she said, I shouldn't have said that word. You made us laugh and cry. That was the best talk of the whole couple of days convention. And I asked why. And she said that you mentioned that everybody who has mental health problems always feels that they are rejected from the world. There's something terribly wrong with them. They can't have a proper life. And I told them the story of the tree in the forest. I'm a forest monk. I've lived in forests in so many countries, now in Australia. And in the forest of Bodhinyana Monastery or Jhana Grove, I walked in that forest for years, and I've yet to find a perfect tree. Every tree in that forest is bent, twisted, with limbs, branches, twigs fallen off. Some of the leaves have been eaten by bugs, and because of the forest fires and storms, every trunk of every tree is damaged. And I said, I've never seen a perfect tree, but I've seen many beautiful trees. And the trees which I love most of all, which I like to go back to, if I wanted a photograph taken, it would be under those trees, are the ones which are most bent and twisted and damaged. They're the beautiful ones. So I said in my talk, any of you who have mental health problems, if you think you are bent, twisted, and missing so much which other people have, please know that you belong. You're like a tree in the forest, which is not some idealistic perfect tree, which is bent and twisted. And if any of you are what people call damaged goods, you belong more than any other tree, and are my favorite ones. And I'm not sort of making that up. The damaged goods are sometimes the most perfect. And I use that simile of the trees to emphasize that. That's why people were crying. They weren't told to get better before they could come and be respected. Stay as you are. You're already beautiful enough. That was a simile of the trees in the forest.
Thank you, Ajahn. I like this question. Will meditation reach a stage where one can see spirits?
Yes. But first of all, I should say, at this time of the year, there are dangerous spirits in Singapore. I've seen them. Honestly, I have. And these spirits are so dangerous, they have actually killed people. That's why they're dangerous. They are called the bottle ghosts. They live in bottles. And when you open those bottles, they can get inside of you. And they make you talk in very strange ways. And you can't even walk in a straight line. And if you drive a car, it's totally out of control. It's called alcohol. That's why things like whiskey, rum, vodka, they are called spirits. Yes, I can see spirits, and they're very dangerous. But the real question, which I didn't answer, I mean the spirits, the ghosts, supernormal beings. Yes, of course you can get to meditation and you can see and hear spirits, but by that time you will realize that you are far more powerful than any spirit. If you ever look at the hierarchy of existences in Buddhism, from the high heavenly realms to the low hell realms, human beings are actually quite high. They're just below the heaven realms. And under the human realm, there's the animal realm, then the ghost realm, spirit realms are underneath us. We have far more power. If you ever see a real spirit, tell it to get out of here. You don't belong in this human realm. And they have to obey you. You are higher beings. And they're especially afraid of monastics, monks and nuns, because we know that they don't have much power. We tell them, out of here, and they have to go. That's one of the reasons why people do invite monks and nuns to your house if it's haunted or whatever. Monks, nuns, people who keep precepts are far stronger. So if ever you see a spirit, I mean a real spirit, like a ghost or whatever, messing around in Singapore, let them know that if they carry on messing around like that, you will tell Ajahn Brahm or the Venerable Nun here, you will be in trouble. And I think they should know better by now. They will disappear.
Thank you. Why are there meditators who can go into very deep meditation but still are not enlightened? If I'm going for a meditation retreat, what's the minimum number of days to see profound effect?
3,864,000. In other words, there is no such minimum or maximum amount of time. Sometimes the people practice for years and don't seem to get very much. And then one day they see the problem they had and it all flips over and they become fully enlightened. It's what they say, it's like filling up a pot of water, a big pot of water taller than you. So you can't tell how much water is inside, and you can't tell how much more water is needed. All that ever happens, you keep pouring water in there, knowing that one day it will surprise you. There's so much water in there that it overflows and it's full. So your job as human beings is to keep filling up that pot. Doesn't matter how many days or how many days you have, you just keep going there and it keeps filling up little by little. And little by little, you become wiser, kinder human beings. That's a wonderful thing to do.
Thank you. Dear Ajahn, can we enter first jhana without using the light nimitta? For instance, by following breath all the way like the Anapanasati Sutta. Does light nimitta appear prior to the jhana? I think he meant prior to first jhana or during fourth jhana.
Okay, the Anapanasati Sutta includes things like these nimittas, these light nimittas. If you look at the 9th stage of Anapanasati, you are aware of the citta, the mind. That's the 6th sense, as you are breathing in and breathing out. It doesn't say that you're focusing on the breath, but what happens is the breath gets so peaceful, so beautiful. The joy which I've already mentioned, like seeing the clump of bamboo, that becomes a natural part of your mind when you're peaceful, still, and mindful. And so you start to see this breath as very beautiful, delightful, and then the delight takes over, the breath disappears. And that is actually usually where a person sees these incredible, beautiful lights, which give you many happinesses and nimittas. What you're doing, you're experiencing the citta, your mind, apart from the other 5 senses. Most people, human beings, see that as a light. But not all human beings, a majority do. Because we are visual beings. That's our strongest sense. That's why when I go to the airport tomorrow morning, they'll have a look at my passport, which has got my photo on it. That's how you're recognized. They don't have a photograph of my feet. They're pretty ordinary. They don't have sound of my voice. We're visual people. And because we're visual people, that is how we usually interpret this citta when it arises. It sees this beautiful light. And after a while, we develop that. That is in the 𝐁𝐫𝐴𝐺𝐸 Sutta, number 108 of the Majjhima Nikaya. I'm getting technical now. Which is the 9th part of the Anapanasati Sutta. The 10th and 11th part is first of all bringing more joy, brightening up, more confidence in that nimitta, and samadhahang cittang, which is the 11th part of Anapanasati. That's when we keep it stable, still. So it doesn't move around all over the place and has a chance to really develop. And then the 12th part of Anapanasati is Vimoccayang cittang, which is the word, what's it called? The idiom, 𝐁𝐫𝐚𝐡𝐦. It means literally freedom, but it's always used in the suttas to define the experience of jhana. You're freeing the mind from the five senses. At that point, you have a big separation, from the five senses. You're in the realm of the mind and having a beautiful, peaceful, stable time. And it's gorgeous. Even if there are any Christians here, or friends of yours who are Christians, in the book of Psalms, it said in there, "Be still and know that thou art God." When I first saw that, I thought, this is weird, because being still is like being in deep meditation. And knowing that thou art God is your experience which you're having, big bliss. Sometimes people experience that as incredibly pure love. You're not there. And I could understand why a person with a Christian background would interpret that as union with God. So much so, if there's anyone here I often mention who had even a first jhana, it was recognized, yes, you were in jhana. Then, to make it fair with the Christians, they would start calling the next hospital in Singapore St. Brahms, or the next school St. Pang's. He is our president. Because this is how powerful those states are. But yes, you do usually experience those lights. Don't try and find shortcuts. I don't believe in Every time a person's taking me on a shortcut, we always get lost and waste time.
Thank you, Ajahn. Dear Ajahn, I have been working too hard this year and thus have had frequent migraines and vomiting. I have since recovered, but am afraid of a relapse. Hence, would it be wise to take a huge pay cut and take on less work duties instead? But on the other hand, I'm fearful that I have not enough money to retire.
First of all, I've been going to help with people with cancer in a voluntary organization in Perth for the last about 36 or 7 years. Every year they come to Bodhinyana Monastery. Every year I also go and teach in their place. And recently they got a huge government grant to build a multi-million-dollar facility for them. And once they got that facility built, they invited 2 VIPs to open that new facility. One of them was the Premier of Western Australia, a man called Colin Barnett. So he was the head politician of Western Australia. And the second VIP was actually not a VIP, but a VIM. It was me. And I was surprised. Usually they are invite the Premier or then the head of the health department or some other big shot. Why are you inviting me there? And then they said it was because the very first time I went there, one of the patients asked a very similar question. They had severe breast cancer, had mastectomy. It was very painful and very difficult for them to get through all of that. But then they went into remission, and then they asked this question from psychologists, psychiatrists, experts, doctors, and they asked this question of me. Said, I've been through all of this, and I'm so terrified. If I go and find in a scan that cancer has returned, I don't think I could take it. I'm so afraid that it might come back. And she said, what should I do if it comes back? And my answer was, what should you do if it doesn't come back? Now that you've heard me say answers like that before, but for this woman, that really hit her very hard. She never ever thought about that. Her worry was what happens if it comes back, and I would say, what if it doesn't come back? And she thought about that for 30 years, and it never came back. But she would always come back to see me. And that was how powerful some of these Buddhist teachings are, which is why I was invited to be the VIM, and why, you know that sometimes we do these blessings with the holy water? And so I had to ask the security guards first of all, because the Premier is an important fellow. You know, he could be assassinated or something. So I asked permission from the security. I said, yeah, go on, to bless him with holy water. And he was laughing. So there's no problem at all. But that's the answer to your question. You're worried. What if that migraine and vomiting comes back? What if it never comes back? And sometimes that is a more probable outcome. If you're worried that it will come back, you're increasing the odds of it coming back. Fear and worry is no way to face a future. And also, taking a pay cut. If you don't like your work, fine. But if you really enjoy your work, and sometimes people do enjoy working hard. I know one person who works really hard and almost fell asleep during that first meditation today. I'm an old monk, but nevertheless, you do the best you can, which means you don't worry. And of course, there's many other skillful means of working hard without getting tense. Whoever asks that question, I'm spending more time on it because this is the answer. When you're at work, do you have to spend many hours at work? Does your boss look how many hours you're in the office? Or does your boss look at how productive you are? The quality of your work and how much work you produce rather than the number of hours you spend there. The answer is obvious. So quality, the productivity, that's the most important. So how can you increase your productivity without increasing your stress? How heavy is a glass of water? I've done this so many times. How heavy is a glass of water? The answer is, the longer I hold it, the heavier it feels. And if I hold it for too long, my arm is in pain. And I can't use my arm afterwards for maybe many hours or days, because I'm stupid. Once this gets too heavy to hold comfortably, I put it down and rest. Then afterwards, I can pick it up. It doesn't feel as heavy, it feels lighter, I can hold it much better. That is a simile for your work. There comes a time when you are trying to write out a report or find a solution to a big problem in your company, and you know your brain is not working to its full potential. It's like you've got a car and there's a few pistons aren't working properly. What do? Would you keep running that car? You would stop for a while, put the car in a garage to get fixed up. Like your brain. You all know that sometimes you're typing out emails and just the words just don't come up. You can't really think of what the right word is or what the right concept is. But you keep trying on that computer, keep on pressing this. You are wasting time. So instead, the advice is find a quiet place, put the cup down, your work, relax, meditate. And if you can find that place to meditate for half an hour, you go back to your computer or whatever it is you're doing, and you find that you haven't done any work at all for half an hour. You've been resting. But then you get 2 hours of work done in an hour and a bit. And it's good quality work. Because you've rested, you've used your brain wisely. Productivity goes up, stress goes down. I first gave that simile at a World Computer Conference. It got taken up by Harvard Business School, and it's now called an investment in time. So in other words, you spend half an hour relaxing, you get that time back afterwards, easy. You're more productive. High quality work in less time. That means you're not so stressed. You don't get your migraines anymore. You have a wonderful time.
Thank you, Ajahn. I think these are quite related, these two questions. Many psychiatrists advise us to unearth childhood trauma and family relationships to improve mental health as an adult. As Buddhists, do we do so or do we let go? How do I feel more grounded as I'm insecure in life due to some childhood experiences and past family issues?
Easy. If you've had childhood bad experiences, traumas, difficulties, other people have been really concerned about you, yes, bring it up. But then what do you do with it? At a conference of psychologists and psychiatrists in Sydney years ago, I told them, this is how you deal with such trauma. You do have to bring it up. And one of the best ways to bring it down, to make it real or visible for you, is to write it down on a piece of paper. But a lot of times people have a lot of trauma, so they need a lot of paper. So I advise them to get cheap, suitable paper for writing down the results of all your trauma and bad things which have happened to you, caused by yourself and others. And the type of paper to use are called rolls of toilet paper. And you write it down in dark brown ink. Now when I say this, people just think it's a joke, but it's very powerful. Because you make the association as you're writing it down that this stuff is not the sort of thing you should keep. It's filthy stuff. It's just dirty stuff. It's full of bad, toxic bacteria and stuff. So you write it down carefully, neatly, in a dark brown felt pen. And you read it to yourself and make sure everything's down there. And then you go to the special ceremony room, which is called the toilet. You sit down there, you read it again. And you really reinforce the connection between what you've written down there, the color of the ink, and the paper you're writing it down on. And then you do the final ceremony. You've read it, it happened, it was real. Now what to do with it? You put it in the toilet and press the button, and it swishes out of your system forever. Please don't do that in the Buddhist fellowship, otherwise all our toilets get blocked. Even in this place here, I've got to be careful, because if you do that here, we won't be allowed in again. But honestly, all these psychiatrists in Sydney were writing it down, thinking this is great, because they're making that connection between trauma and what you should be doing with it. You don't need to hold it on. Detach, let it go. And you hold on to the beautiful things. So you can get another piece of paper, really expensive writing paper with lots of flowers on it, and get a beautiful, very expensive Mont Blanc pen. I know Mont Blanc pens because somebody once offered me one. I didn't know what it was. And I started signing books in Singapore with a Mont Blanc pen. And I really got told off. Where did you get that from? Oh, just somebody gave it to me. It's a very prestigious item. I don't know, I'm a monk. I never bought it for myself, so I had to give it up. But if you're doing this, writing out the beautiful things, get a very expensive pen and write it down very nicely. All the beautiful things of your life so far. All the wonderful things your parents did to you. All the wonderful qualities of your ex or anybody else, of your boss. Write that all down. Laminate it. Photocopy it. Put it as the wallpaper on your mobile phone or something. So you're always reminded that even a bad person who traumatized you has got some wonderful good qualities. It balances life. And if there's any psychiatrist here or psychologist, there's so many in Australia, honestly, who they say they go to university to be able to get permission to teach and to practice as a psychologist or psychiatrist, but they get all the useful stuff from the temple. That's what they say. The amount of innovation you have as a Buddhist monk, the fact you're a meditator, you get to know the mind, and because of that you get insights which psychiatrists love to hear and practice. Okay, am I over time now?
Thank you so much, Ajahn Brahm. Can we say three sadhus, please? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
That's pretty weak, sadhus. Come on, give it everything you've got. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yeah, very good.